This episode of the Brilliance Plus Passion podcast is brought to you by the Podcast Reach System. Are you ready to exponentially reach more profitable customers? Launching and hosting your own show is your proven best solution for networking, client attraction, and establishing your celebrity expert brand. Visit www.podcastreachsystem.com and claim your rightful place as the leading star of your industry so you make a difference for your community, market, and audience. Welcome to the Brilliance Plus Passion podcast. Join us as we celebrate entrepreneurs, business creators, and brilliant minds who reveal what they are doing to make the world a better place by being part of it. Be sure to visit our website at www.brilliancepluspassion.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now sit back, lean in, tune in, get your notepad and 2 pens ready, and let's get started.
My name is Adam Homey. I'm your host, and I am honored by your wise decision to tune in and invest in yourself today. I'm here with one of our office supervisors, Princess Alessandra Francesca. She's very excited to be here with us, as she knows that both me and today's guest are very strong allorophiles, which means cat lover. You may recognize, if you've been following the Brilliance Plus Passion Project from the very beginning, the gentleman who we're going to be speaking with today. He is one of the more dynamic folks I've ever met in my life, and he has some incredible messaging. When we reopened some slots in the Brilliance Plus Passion Project, he jumped right on and requested to come back, saying that he had some new stuff to share with us. So gave me the idea, and I decided to have what's known as a returning contestants round. Here's one of them. His name is Andrew Kapp. He is the author of the last law of attraction book you'll ever need to read, which we discussed in the previous interview. And he's the author of a new book called 3 Words I Use to Sell 100,000 Books. So there's so much more about him that you can discover, but we're going to actually have him tell you a little about it. Andrew Kapp, thank you so much for coming back. It's an honor and a pleasure to get to speak with you again on this show.
Adam, thank you so much for having me. And, I was really excited when you kind of mentioned like, hey, I've got some slots open. I thought, hey, let me throw this in front of him because I enjoyed our conversation so much last time. And really excited to be here.
Yeah, and that's what this is for. I have 2 podcasts. I have the Business Creators Radio Show, which has been on the air for 9 years at this point. And those are hour-long mastermind type conversations. The Brilliance Plus Passion Project is our opportunity to shed the spotlight on what change makers and trendsetters like you are doing. So I'm really liking this idea of seeing some people come back and go for a round 2, and maybe in a year you'll come back for round 3 when you sell your next book or design your next company or what have you. Very briefly, before we get into this, tell us, just so that our listeners understand, what is it that you do in terms of product, services, solutions, so they know how to engage you?
Yeah, well, I'm at a very interesting crossroads here because I technically do 2 things that have nothing to do with each other on the surface. And, as many people who might remember me from last time, I am that guy who's otherwise known as the guy who wrote the last law of attraction book you'll ever need to read, which passed 100,000 copies in sales this year. And ironically, before I ever did that, I was a marketing consultant. I did copywriting. I was in that kind of world. And I got so many requests for, hey, Andrew, how are you selling so many books? I decided to write a new one called 3 Words I Use to Sell 100,000 Books. So now, while I'm still teaching law of attraction, I'm still very engaged and very excited about that. Simultaneous to that, I'm now sharing this information for nonfiction authors, most specifically, on what I did from an organic marketing perspective to get so many copies of that other book sold.
Okay, that's actually what I want to focus on. That's what attracted me to having you back here again. So you mentioned that there are 3 words that sold 100,000 copies. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, well, there's 3 words and just so we're clear, the words are not law of attraction, even though that technically is how I govern everything. But there's 3 words I use as kind of like a philosophical set point, basically viewing what I did through the lens of these words, so that, if I give you a marketing tactic or a strategy, you could actually trace it back to more of like this philosophy of reaching the reader and engaging with the reader in a way that a lot of nonfiction authors just aren't intentional about doing, in a way that they very easily could, especially if they are experts in their field.
Yeah. All right. So organic marketing strategy, but I keep hearing that there's no way you can sell books unless you spend money on advertising or hire an agent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you're saying you did this organically.
Yeah, I mean, I did a little paid traffic. Probably 5% is paid traffic. And
Okay.
a lot of stuff I even spent didn't even move the needle. So I didn't go nothing. I mean, though 95,000 copies on organic ain't half bad. But I think it comes down to the niche you're in. It comes down to the passion of your audience. It comes down to how you position and how you present yourself. And it also comes down to, like, we live in a world today where, I mean, I have fewer than 4,000 YouTube subscribers, but I figured we're in a world where people can have millions of YouTube subscribers. And if you could have millions of YouTube subscribers, what's stopping you, if you have a book and a useful book, from using that as a leverage point? What's stopping you from going on podcasts? What's stopping you from doing a lot of little things or big things, subtle and not so subtle things that really change the way people reach you and the way they discover you?
You and I, both being podcast hosts, understand this as well as anybody. Podcasting is, for the savvy entrepreneur, their key marketing, client attraction, celebrity expert branding tool. I recommend people host their own podcasts like you and I do. And I also recommend that they use that as leverage to get themselves more guest bookings.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's like, you
That's
go
how I
to
got on your show.
I'm sorry?
That's how I got on your show and became your 100th episode.
Yeah, and which, by the way, I was so
was a
excited about.
milestone. I was a milestone. It's because 'cause when we launched the Brilliance Plus Passion Project a year ago, you were among the folks who showed up in our first division of people who, in response to some outreach we were doing, said you were interested. So you came on my show, and then we had a conversation afterwards, and I returned the favor. I got more bookings on other people's podcasts as a result of the Brilliance Plus Passion Project in the year 2021 than I did in any other 2 years combined when I either did self-promotion or worked with agents.
That says it all right there. And I think the thing is, it's this thing where it shocks people. They don't believe it, but it's like we're in a world where a lot more is possible than people realize. And I think the fact that it is shocking to some, the fact that it is surprising, is the reason people don't think to try, is the reason people don't step forward in those types of, ambitious moves. But you're proof positive in your way. I'm proof. And by the way, it's a bit blurry. It was a while ago, but if I remember correctly, you didn't just happen to be my 100th episode. I was recording a bunch, and I selected you based on the quality of your interview, saying, of the ones that I have right here, this should be my 100th milestone, because this is a wonderful thing that I know, because I'm going to spotlight better by making it the milestone. So you being who you are is what got it even extra love, extra leverage, extra exposure just through that.
Yeah, well, this is what we share in our podcast reach system, and this is how you use hosting your own podcast to get on other people's podcasts. When you follow the reach process, they see that you're making an investment in your new media activity and brand, which creates a connotation that you are a high-level professional. B, this could also be A, just depending on how the viewer ranks this. The fact that you've already had a podcast conversation with them gives that other podcast host who's just been your guest pretty much everything they need to know about what kind of guest you would be. And C, you have the opportunity to reach them in a way that you may never do so by cold pitching a one sheet.
Mm-hmm.
One of the podcasts I like to share that I got on as a result of the first wave of the Brilliance Plus Passion Project is Andy Grant's Real Men Feel Project. That was a really great episode. I got to explore some different passion topics that I'd wanted to be interviewed on for a while. If I had approached his podcast through cold pitch, there is a chance, I never spoke to him about this, so I don't actually have his opinion, so I'm not speaking for Andy here. There's a chance he could have looked at that and said, oh, that guy's into podcasting. We don't need him. I've seen people get rejected for a lot less without even having an audience to get to speak with the host. But when you connect with them, you are speaking with them. And in that conversation through the interview and the subsequent in the green room, it almost becomes a natural next step for you to reciprocate. In fact, that's what I tell people. I'll give something away. I say something like, first of all, I really appreciate Andrew that you took time to be on the Brilliance Plus Passion podcast. I'm so happy to be able to provide you this opportunity to share your intersection of your brilliance and your passion. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to reciprocate again by coming to your show, if you'll have me, and sharing on a topic relevant to your audience. So you see what I did? So you did there? I did the subtle frame where I give twice.
Yeah, and so what I love about what you're talking about here also, and I'm going to paraphrase in my own way, and this is what I love the way you think. You're basically cultivating in an integrous way, if integrous is a word, you're cultivating familiarity with integrity, with honesty, with a clear vision and a clear intention to give both sides a win. It isn't one person wins and another person loses. It's not even just one person wins and the other person wins also. It's everybody wins, including the audiences of the respective shows, including anybody that's a go-between, that's making the connection. Every person in the cascade, in that web of connection, is getting a win in some way, shape, or form. That's what I get from you as I hear you describe the way you do it.
Yeah. It's all in how you phrase and position and the frames you create around things. So I love how basically what you're saying is you sold 95,000 books through organic means. So maybe 5% through ads is what I'm hearing, give or take. So we heard about podcasts. We heard about where are we today in terms of public speaking as a way of selling books, like seminars and conferences? What's been your experience with that?
So what I know of it is it's very powerful, although I have not personally been leveraging it as much. And it's not because I don't want to. It's like I'm kind of like naturally going in whatever direction I'm being pulled. So for a lot, I was pulled into a number of summits where basically I was a group of 30 other speakers with thousands of people in those events to put myself in front of a lot of audiences. But also for me, a lot of it's just been individual podcasts and of that nature. So I haven't done a lot of like on stage, any to that for that matter, like in person on stage speaking, but I have done like virtual stages and things like that. But for the most part, it's all cumulative, from all the podcast interviews to the fact that I'm running a YouTube channel, which by the way has done a lot. Like my podcast has kind of fallen off. My YouTube has really taken front center stage just for me. It isn't like podcasts, but obviously podcasts are wonderful. That's why I'm trying to go on so many. But for me, just like I follow the natural flow of where I'm being pulled. Like, oh, I feel like I should do a video. I feel like I should do this platform. I feel I should do this. I'm kind of following, strategies and sound insights while at the same time following my gut and kind of mixing it all together and just going with the flow and trying to be intelligent and insightful at the same time.
Right. What I'm hearing is being persistently consistent, which is a phrase I've been using for 2 decades now.
Yes.
It's a matter of showing up everywhere you can, being courageous and willing to go into markets that sometimes may be a change of pace from what you're used to.
Yeah. And being willing to not, you can give so much value even if you're not a perfect presenter, and no one's going to be a perfect presenter anyway. And then it's my belief that if you worry about being perfect, you're actually going to be more imperfect because you're going to put too much stress on yourself.
Correct.
Whereas if you're just trying to give your best and you're being consistently persistent, you're going to improve naturally and automatically anyway. And you're going to look at yourself a year from now, you won't even be able to recognize with all the massive improvements that you've made.
Yeah. It's like whatever you focus on. I was interviewed on another podcast very recently where we were discussing how CEOs and executives can tell when their employees have mentally checked out and have already in their mind basically resigned. And one of the factors that I mentioned was that if you have somebody who's been raising a lot of ideas, complaining, has gotten a reputation as a bit of a malcontent. And all of a sudden, you notice they get real quiet. They start showing up from 8 to 5 every day. They take their hour for lunch and their 2 15-minute breaks. And the quality of their work improves by like 5 to 10%. These are all indicators that you may be losing, if you haven't already lost, that employee, at least psychologically. They may already be checked out. What happens is they recognize that their brilliance and their passion are no longer appreciated. So they're going to replace brilliance and passion with competence and compliance. Do what they have to and do it well. Because they're less focused on innovation, more just focused on doing their job, by nature, they're going to get 5 to 10% improvement on that, because now they're spending all their time just on doing their job and not thinking about, well, how can we improve the organization here? How can we reach a new market there? How can we work on this process here? How can we get these departments integrated here? They don't care anymore.
Interesting. I wonder, and I'm not sure if it's part of the research that you learned. I wonder if there's an indicator of a timeline when they suddenly have a new job offer and they're off to someplace else.
I haven't looked into that very deeply. Maybe 6 to 9 months, because that's how it was for me when I reached that point. The reason I bring that up is you made observations about getting incrementally better at what you do.
Yeah.
And I use that as an outlier pattern interrupt example of how that principle works in action.
Got it.
Yeah, that's I really wanted to stand out and give our listeners something to remember, that I said, I was talking about employees who are ready to quit actually doing better at their work. That's interesting. Yeah, okay.
It is. It's like it's the unexpected. It's you're subverting expectation right there. A wonderful pattern interrupt, really.
Absolutely. So we're basically at the top of the time here. I do have 2 questions for you. Actually, 1 question. I'm going to, in a moment, introduce to our audience a gift you have for them, and I'm also going to say a few final words. But could you tell us where people can find the books? The Last Law of Attraction book you ever need to read, which we discussed last year, and the new book, 3 Words I Use to Sell 100,000 Books.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for asking. It's pretty easy. Like there's a one spot where you can just go to awesomemarvelous.com.
Yep.
And it's only got like 3 links there, and it'll send you to the US Amazon listings for both of those books. But if you're not in the United States, you can just very easily check your local regional Amazon or Audible. And awesomemarvelous.com also has a link to my YouTube channel if anyone wants to see how I organically market myself and my Law of Attraction book through that specific platform. So whether you're pulling out your wallet or you're getting free content, it really just my desire that whatever I have serves someone in some way, shape, or form.
Excellent. So, and you also requested that we share an opportunity for your list. And what it is, it's the opportunity to gain your access to the content creation machine, which is an easy system for letting readers come up with valuable new material for you. It's a bonus that I believe is attached to the 3 Words I Use to Sell 100,000 Books. It has a little bit of a long URL, and it's on a Weebly site. So what I'm going to encourage people to do is visit our website at www.brilliancepluspassion.com and look for the second Andrew Kapp interview. If the syndication platform you're listening to this through has expandable long-form content, you'll find it in there. Otherwise, it's real simple. Just check us out on something like YouTube, and you'll be able to find it in the notes there as well. But it's the content creation machine, and I think it's a great, totally free resource. And I think I'm going to check that out myself, because you got me a little bit curious.
And if I may, real quick, Adam, the reason that the URL is so long is technically this is exclusive to your show right now, in so much as the only way people can usually get this is if they opt into I have like 9 or 10 book bonuses that go with 3 Words I Use to Sell 100,000 Books. There's no even opt-in required. The link that you're going to have in your show notes, they don't have to even give their email address. They're going to have complete access to that video. And I chose that one in the hopes that whether people are a nonfiction author or not, they'd be able to pull real insights that they could apply to whatever they're doing in their own businesses.
Absolutely. So, Andrew Kapp, thank you again for coming back to the Brilliance Plus Passion Project. It's been an honor, and believe me, as always, an education.
Thank you for
And-
having me, Adam. The pleasure's been all mine. I always enjoy talking with you.
Yep, and we'll see if you have another book next year and you come back for round 3. I'd love that if it's possible.
Hey, here's hoping. I'll work on something.
All right.
Thank you for tuning into the Brilliance Plus Passion podcast, where we celebrate entrepreneurs, business creators, and brilliant minds who are making a difference for their community, market, and audience. Remember to visit our website at www.brilliancepluspassion.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Brilliance Plus Passion podcast.